Welcome everybody, this is Sandman with 311 Griffins, and I finally put together a video of DCS 2.0 and the NTTR map that was released some time ago actually. And I wanted to talk about first impressions and the good, bad, and the ugly of DCS 2 and NTTR. So first and foremost, it is in alpha. There have probably been some updates since I've downloaded it. So a lot of things are going to change if they haven't already, so keep that in mind. And I'm just giving kind of my impressions and some things that I've noticed. So first, let's talk about the good. So DCS 2.0 looks great. To me it looks a lot like 1.5. The new map is quite different obviously from the Georgia or the Caucasus map, but NTTR is looking good and DCS 2.0 is looking good. There are some much better particle effects and lighting and things like that. I'm sure there are things that I don't even notice that are quite different. And anyway, it's really cool. Looks good, and so that's the first good thing. It also doesn't kill your frame rate. I've got things set fairly middle of the road, I think, as far as settings go. But my frame rate is comparable, if not better, than it was in the original DCS. There are times when I see frame rate drops, but those usually last just a couple of minutes. I'm not for sure why that is, and then they steady out. So that's not too big of a deal. But yeah, it looks really good. It looks good in the daytime. It looks good at night. It's obviously fun to fly down the strip. Everybody's doing it these days. So anyway, really cool. Another good thing about the NTTR map is that Eagle Dynamics actually kept a promise to people who bought the A10C beta within a certain time period. The Nevada map was promised to them, and if I'm not misunderstanding the story, there was a third-party developer working on Nevada, and they stopped, and then Eagle Dynamics had to basically start over from scratch, which is a huge undertaking, and I'm proud of Eagle Dynamics for doing it, for keeping that promise. I don't know that they were legally bound to do so, but it was a good move on their part. I'm not an Eagle Dynamics fanboy by any stretch of the imagination. There's quite a bit that they do that I just kind of scratch my head on, but I think that they've made some pretty good choices too, and I think this is one of them. So the game looks good. It's great. The map has been long awaited and released finally, and it's pretty fun to fly around. Now, is it really worth buying? Can you put a lot of force on force missions together? Not necessarily, not unless you stretch your imagination a little bit, but it's a good looking map, and there's a lot of good potential because of DCS 2.0 and the map release. So that's really cool. And aside from that, most of the other good things that I wanted to talk about, I think that covers them. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that like I said, I don't even notice. I'm sure that there's a lot more that one could talk about in regards to what's good about DCS 2.0 and the NTTR map. But even though anyway, I'm done with the good stuff, so let's talk about the bad. And I'm a little ahead of schedule in terms of the bad and my videos that I've put together, my little video clips, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about the bad. And a lot of this bad stuff, again, it might change later. Some of it's just opinion, some of it's just things that I think, and and some of it could get fixed as we proceed. But the first bad thing that I'd like to talk about is there's some collision model oddness that's going on. And again, I think that this is something that could be fixed later, or it could just be a balance. And that being said, if it is a balancing effect, as I think it is, it's probably not really a bad thing. But moving vehicles, as many of you have probably noticed, don't blow up. In fact, you'll see a clip here in a little bit where I slide through a semi-truck in a Huey. it's odd, but I think it's a balancing effect to keep us from lagging out our computers with a bunch of exploded vehicles, because if you're like me, and most people that fly this simulator probably are in this way, the first thing you did was flew down the strip and tried to blow up every car driving down it, and they don't blow up. So that's a little bit odd. Now I didn't get a video clip of this. I wished I would have. I tried, but NVIDIA Shadowplay was messing up on me. But I dropped a bomb through the Trump Tower, or the Trom Tower, whatever it is. It literally fell through and hit a parking lot on the other side, and the parked cars seem to blow up, but the moving cars do not. Also, the buildings have weird collision effects, because again, as you'll see, and as most of you have probably noticed that have flown in this map, the buildings, bullets will impact the buildings, so will your aircraft. But the bombs fell through the 2 times I hit the buildings. So, a bit of a balancing act that Eagle Dynamics has done. I'm not opposed to it. I'd rather see it this way than have horrible frame rates, or have it to where my machine couldn't even play the game or something like that. And, you know, my machine's not shabby. It's not top of the line, but it's certainly not shabby. Not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, another thing is that I put some armor on the Hoover Dam and the Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge, and it was kind of hard to place because you've got to place it on land, and I guess it's just kind of hard to place in the mission editor. But I was able to do it, so that's something that could be tweaked. Another thing that I've noticed, and hopefully that this will be added later, I read somewhere that part of DCS 2.0 will be a mission editor overhaul. And the 3 parts of that I'd like to see are basically just that, the mission editor overhaul. I would like to see the weapon loadout and the skin screen to be where we can tell what the skin looks like without launching the game, which is something that I've read is going to happen. I would also like to see a weather overhaul. Those are 3 things that I've read were going to happen. I haven't noticed them yet. Everything's the same as it was before, which means that weather is pretty hard to figure out and hard to set up the way you want it. The mission editor isn't quite as robust as I think it could be, and of course you still have to load the mission to see if your skin's turned out okay, unless you're going to go into the model viewer. I would like to throw, and I know this is probably something that a lot of people say and a lot of other people get annoyed at, but I would encourage Eagle Dynamics to copy as much as they can from the ARMA mission editor. Going all the way back to Operation Flashpoint, that is probably the best and most robust and most intuitive mission editor ever created. So I think a lot of people would be happy, and a guy like me who doesn't have a lot of programming experience, I can do some light scripting in an editor like that, and I can make a lot of cool stuff happen. So it's really not that difficult to get into, and it's a lot more powerful than what the DCS mission editor is. So let's talk about a couple of other things that I noticed. In this scene, you're seeing some flares that I launched from my A10, and there's just some weird weird lighting effects, or there's something going on where at a distance it shows up as some like white boxes, and then as you get closer it turns into more what one would think that the flares would look like. So that's just something that I noticed. Let's see what else we've got here.
Altitude. Pull up.
This is just some filler clips, I think.
Pull up. Pull up.
Okay, here's where I slide through. I kind of hit a light pole, and then I slide through a semi-truck, which was kind of weird. At the tail end of this clip, though, there was a really cool flame coming out of the exhaust on that helicopter, which I don't know if that was there before or not, but it looked pretty cool. good job. And okay, so a couple of things that I noticed were some weird shadows. I noticed it coming off that Space Needle and then under the Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge. I think on the bridge it was car shadows that looked like they were falling towards the water. I don't know if you can see them in these clips or not, but I did notice, like I said, around that Space Needle Tower and the bridge, every time I flew nearby those, there was a pretty good chance that I was going to see something like a black blob falling down towards the ground. Best I can figure is it's shadows, not base jumpers like what I originally thought was coming off the bridge. So those are just some things that I noticed. Nothing crazy. I mean, there's not a lot of bad stuff from this game that I've noticed so far. As you get away from towns or the cities, the more populated areas, the ground textures are reduced in size. We were warned about that. That stands to reason that would happen, but sometimes they get pretty fuzzy, pretty blurry, and it can also be really hard to tell how far off the deck you are if you're trying to fly low, which, you know, that's probably neither here nor there, but sometimes the ground textures did get a little bit goofy. Now, the last thing I want to talk about are some wish list items for me. Now that it's pretty cool that we've got this big international airport at McCarran, I think it would be nice if there was a way you could dial up the civilian traffic, air traffic included. Now, this is probably reliant on some good air traffic control, which we don't have yet that I'm aware of, but it would be cool if a mission editor, mission designer could kind of dial up the civilian traffic at the airport, you know, and require you to use ATC correctly and stay out of the way and land safely and all that stuff. So the other thing is in regard to civilian traffic on the streets, it'd be kind of nice if you could shut that off or block it off and have traffic jams and backups. And again, you don't want to overdo it, so at a point they have to start disappearing or your performance is going to sting. But it'd be nice if you could shut down streets and things like that. That's about all I had for today. So just enjoy the best helicopter landing I've ever done. Still wasn't great, but yeah, I'm getting better, and DCS 2 seems to be making it more enjoyable and better. So good job, Eagle Dynamics. Keep up the good work, and I'm going to fly off into the sunset here in the old A10C Warthog. Thanks for watching, guys.